Hello, I'm Kristen Brown, and this is Charlie Lutes. And we're going to talk today about truth. So let's start out, Charlie. What is your definition of truth?
Truth is something that is as it occurred or as it really happened in any sense of the word. Truth, there are two types of truth, you might say. Mm-hmm. There's a relative truth and there's an absolute truth. The absolute truth is unalterable truth. What is true today was true yesterday. It will always be true. This is the so-called absolute truth, or this is what is called absolute truth. Then, of course, there's the relative truth. What may be true today doesn't necessarily follow that it will be true tomorrow. It's a circumstance that fits the present situation, and that's the truth of the situation of the day. But it does not necessarily follow that that's the truth of the situation in the future, or that it was in the past. So this is the so-called transient truth and the absolute truth, the relative versus the absolute. Now we're talking about the path of truth because ultimately we have to learn the truth of our own self. This is why it's the path of truth. At some time in our life, we begin to understand and begin to realize that there is a truth to creation, there's a truth to life, there's a truth to everything that exists. Now, of course, what we think of, generally speaking, in relation to truth is, am I truthful or am I not truthful in relation to a certain story we're telling or a situation, or is somebody else truthful or untruthful? And of course, the truthful people are admired, the ones who are not truthful are less than admired, etc. Now, one thing that always struck me as interesting was, why is a liar always known as a liar? It's because he's telling a story that never happened. Therefore, there's no memory of it. The next time he tells it, it's a different story because there's no basis of fact there. Nothing really occurred. He's simply telling a story expedient to the circumstance or condition or the time that he's telling it. This is why oftentimes when a person's interrogated for something, they say, now just repeat this story again. Now let's hear that story over again at different related times, and the story varies. How many times have you read in the paper, well, so-and-so told 4 different stories. So obviously the truth is somewhere, but not in his story. And this is what we reflect as a person who is basically not truthful or dishonest. Now, not being truthful just means we have dishonest intentions. Otherwise, we'd be truthful. Like they say, well, the person of a very low consciousness is truthful, but not too intelligent. Now you have the other person who is very intelligent, but not too truthful. So you have both extremes.
Now you're talking about levels of relative truth, or that we become
well, I mean,
kind of
relative or otherwise, truth is truth. As to whether something did occur or did not occur, or whether this was the way that we should present something in the light of the truth, or should we distort it?
But I
less
think
than truthful.
The truth is, the absolute truth is truth.
Well, now the absolute truth is unalterable truth.
That's unalterable. But relative truth
There are different
changes,
types of
doesn't
truths. This is what I'm talking about, different types of truths.
Uh-huh.
The truth is related to a human being as to whether he lives a truthful life or does not live a truthful life,
Yes.
whether he tells the truth or does not tell the truth.
right.
That's one type of truth. Then there are the truths of life. For instance, if you touch a electric wire that has current going for it, the truth of it is it's going to electrocute you, or at least give you a very good shock. That's a truth too. So there's those type of truths.
There's a way that we perceive truth, though, like we were saying earlier about someone in an accident. And there are 4 people who see the same accident, and they all come up with different versions of the truth. But they all believe they saw this or that.
Well, that's relative again. As an example, if there were 4 people on 4 corners and an accident occurred in the intersection, you'd have 4 different versions of the
That's
accident.
right.
Now that would be truth as far as they saw it. Truth to the degree that they know the truth. And they can only know the truth from their own particular perspective, or from whence they saw something. But the real truth of it, be if somebody were above the intersection looking down, then he would see the truth of it, you see. So yes, truth to that degree is relative, plus the fact that things that apply today in our mode of living in our particular time of life, things occur that are truths. Now, those truths change as times change. This is what we mean about relative truths. Now, what we're talking about an absolute truth is something that just simply never changes. It was a truth today, it was a truth yesterday, it always would be the truth. And these truths, that's the inner truth, really. This is the universal truth. When we speak of absolute truth, we're talking about truth from actually the field of transcendental, or the field of the essence of existence itself, that which permeates all of the universe. And this is the truth, the truth of creation, you might say, the truth of maintenance. As far as the universe is concerned, there's a certain truth there. There are certain laws. These laws are the truth of creation. Now, these laws and these truths don't change.
No.
But the truths of humanity, or of the relative aspect of life, they do change.
And the perception, as you're saying perspective, and then we think of that story of the 6 blind men and the elephant, and one says, oh, it's a fan, and the other says it's a rope, and the other says, oh, it's a snake, because they're all seeing it or feeling it from a different perspective. Now, how are we going to know, in terms of our own relative truth in life, if something's really true?
Well, there's two ways. One is to find out ultimately through experience or through time. Time will always disclose the truth. Truth will always rise to the surface no matter what. But that takes time. And again, sometimes by experience, by investigation, we find out what's true, or we find out what isn't true. And by and large in life, the human being, they are truth seekers at all levels. We're trying to find out or disclose or reveal for ourselves what is the truth. But then again, within ourselves, are we basically or intrinsically truthful? And this means truthful in many ways. Are we truthful to ourselves? Now, the greatest problem I think that a human has is attempting to lie to themselves. And they try this. You cannot do this.
When you tell a lie, you really only lie to yourself. When you're telling it to someone else, but that truth is becoming, that's a lie in your own essence.
You tell one lie, then you have to tell 2 lies to cover the one lie, and 2 calls for 4, and ultimately the truth is lost.
That's right.
But then again, and many times too, there have been those who have said, now if you tell the untruth often enough, then it becomes the truth, which simply means that enough people begin to believe this. But also, at some time or some place, they will find out that it wasn't true.
The truth will out.
Has to. Because truth is truth. This is the situation as it really is, as it really was, and so forth. And nothing changes this. Truth means the fact. If you want to use another word for truth, you can say, well, this is the fact. This is what is the truth. And oftentimes it's much better, oftentimes, always really, it's much better to tell the truth. It's a lot simpler.
What about the white lie? What about,
the so-called white lie, yes, simply means that we do not use truth as a weapon. We don't hurt someone with the truth. We don't batter them with the truth. We don't go out of our way to upset them. Well, it's the truth. I was just telling the truth. How many times I've heard people say,
yeah, they're very cruel with the truth.
Is.
That's right.
And what they should have is a sign on them that says, I'm cruel. Because this is really what they're doing. And you don't have to go out of your way to use truth as a weapon. Somebody may say, how do I look, or something like that. You have to say, oh boy, I mean, you look terrible. You say, oh, yeah, I think maybe you need a little rest or something, you know. You don't need to come right out and say, well, you look terrible. You say, oh, are you getting enough rest, or, something of this nature. Not to hurt them, or you look good, you look fine. Even so. Because how many people say to you, how are you today? Fine. Automatic answer. You don't really think about it. You don't stop and look at them and say, well, now wait a minute, how do they really look? It's just an automatic reflex, automatic answer. And again, truth should always be, certainly, revered. But again, we don't want to use it as a weapon. Okay. But it's best to be truthful.
So we want to be kind with the truth. We don't want to be cruel. We want to be as kind as we can be and tell the truth.
Well, sure.
Okay. We'll be right back after this. Charlie, there's an experience of truth that I have. Sometimes I'm speaking to someone and I get a shiver throughout my body, and it feels like then I know it's absolutely true. What is that occurring right there? Is there an experience that comes with truth?
No, that's an inner feeling, an inner knowing. Also, oftentimes you are able to know by intuition.
Yeah.
Intuitively, you know that something is or isn't true.
That's right.
That's an inner faculty. And it's a very good faculty to have developed, incidentally. But people are known, for being truthful or for not being truthful. I think Abraham Lincoln had a tremendous reputation for being truthful. I think the late President Truman had a tremendous reputation for being truthful. People used to ask him, they said, why don't you give him hell, Harry? Or give him hell, Harry. He said, I never gave anybody hell. He said, I told them the truth and they thought it was hell. And, which is probably very true, too.
Right.
But he was known for that, for being truthful. And this is a tremendous thing to be known for. I remember one time I was going to apply for a job, and I'd never worked in this field before. But a friend of mine told me it was a very good field to get into, and so I went to see about the job. So by circumstance, I wound up with the senior vice president for an interview, and I rehearsed everything I was going to say, and I was going to tell him how much I knew about his business, and I really would be an asset to the company. So I walked up to his desk and shook hands with him. The first thing he said to me, he said, what do you know about this business? I looked at him for a second. I said, I don't know anything. He said, you're hired. He said, you're the first man I've met today that doesn't know more than I know. Now I found somebody I can teach. Just by being truthful or being honest, I got the job. And I probably never would have gotten a job if I'd have started with him with a long story about how much I knew, because he'd have found out in about 2 minutes I didn't know much, and that'd have been the end of that. So yes, I think as we go through, again, we learn by experience to be truthful is far more rewarding, far more beneficial, as far as we're concerned, than any part of untruth. But again, the truth that we wish to discover and the truth that we need to discover is the truth of ourselves. This is the real truth. This is the truth of life, and this is the truth of everything in life.
Now that's absolute truth.
Well,
that's
sure.
The truth that is unchanged.
So you have to then go within yourself and take the mind to the field of the absolute or to the field of the transcendental and begin to infuse this into the nature of the mind. Now you're infusing truth. This is the truth. The truth is that you're able to infuse bliss into the nature of the mind, and you begin to express this. This is a truth. And not only that, when you begin to discover all of the various facets of yourself, then you begin to become more unified within yourself. You begin to find that harmony that's within yourself. And this is the great truth of life. The truth is that within ourselves is the great depth of humanity, not in the external. This is the one thing I think that humanity always has to learn at some time or another. And that's just simply that which we know in the external is very shallow. And in the end produces frustration because we can't find the real answer. And there's that desire, there's that need within ourselves to know this. And when we awaken to this fact, then we set about to learn it. And by going within, because there are the unalterable, the absolute truths of nature, of ourself, of creation, and all this begins to unfold. And we begin to express this. Now this is really living the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth of life.
Well, you're saying that happiness doesn't come from without, or in always getting more and more and more. You're saying that happiness comes from within. You can go within to find it.
Well, there's a certain amount of happiness, certainly, in the exterior aspect of life, but there's nothing permanent about it. And we're constantly pursuing happiness. And in pursuing happiness, we seemingly never find it. Because you don't find happiness by searching for happiness. You find happiness in giving of yourself, of service, put it that way. Now, when you go within yourself, you have a greater degree or ability for service, that's all. And you begin to realize this is the truth. This is the truth of my life. This is the truth of all life.
This is the path of truth, service.
The path of truth. Now you're on the path of truth. And this begins to unfold. And you begin to express it. One of the truths of life is that there's a tremendous reservoir of intelligence that we can draw upon. And as we begin to unfold this, we begin to become more and more intelligent. And our need to be intelligent is just simply, there's no end to it. There's no end to our intelligence and our need to be intelligent. Also, there's a great need. I would say the most difficult thing that a human has to deal with in life is to live within yourself. And the truth is that this is really where life is and contentment is. Not that we have to be constantly entertained or distracted by something in the external manifestation of life, but that we can find peace and serenity, calmness within our own self. This is the truth. And when we discover this truth, we've discovered the greatest truth that there is. And this is why we're truth seekers. This is why in humanity there must come a point, there must come a time in our life when we find it necessary to seek the truth.
To go within. Because if we stay without, we'll get more and more and more, but maybe more will never be enough.
Well, trying to find the truth in the exterior becomes more and more confusing because it always winds up in frustration, and we become more and more frustrated. Now as we begin to realize, well, if I go to the essence of truth itself, and if I begin to infuse this, then there's no confusion. Because this is the fact. This is the truth. And being the truth, nothing can change it.
Being absolute truth. Now
Sure.
we're talking about truth that is unchanging. Now those of us who are not coming from a place of truth, what would be the disadvantages, say, to being a con man, or lying, or using it another way? Because this is just...
Well, a con artist or a con man is simply one who trades on honesty. If he didn't look honest, he couldn't fool anyone. His ability to fool someone with honesty, or what appears to be honesty. I am a very honest person, is the appearance he gives. And he has the ability to do that. Because if he looked dishonest, you wouldn't have anything to do with him.
But is there suffering involved with that? Is there limitations?
Suffering for the person that he takes advantage of, you
Yeah,
bet.
that's right.
And then again, I'm sure we do know that if we take advantage of someone in this manner, it's going to happen to us also. But then he's not aware of that. He's only aware of one thing, and that is how many people can he take advantage of.
It's still going to
And he trades
happen.
on honesty.
That's right. But because of his dishonesty, it's still going to come back to him. I don't know.
Oh, yes, indeed it is. And then he's going to wonder, how in the world did this all happen to me, you know? He'd be the last one to understand it. Of course, if you listen to some of these conversations, he may understand it a little better, but let's hope he does.
Right.
But in any case, the only thing that we are really saying is that it pays to be honest. Honesty always, you're rewarded for honesty, and you're never rewarded for dishonesty. And I don't care what the nature of the honesty or the truth may be.
Okay, this is the truth, right? You're always rewarded for honesty.
Or for being truthful, which is the same thing.
And then nature can support you. You come into a harmony and a rhythm in life.
There are several things that nature will never support. Dishonesty is one of them. Nature will not support dishonesty. Nature will not support someone who's not truthful. Now, truthful doesn't mean that we have to go around all day long being sure we say just exactly the truth, because maybe we don't understand the truth in that light. Maybe there's some things that we do not have all of the answers to. But when we're confronted with something that we really do know, then it's best just to be factual about it and be truthful about it. And it's much simpler. Much simpler for us and much simpler for everybody else.
What about superstitions, how they develop, and how they develop, not necessarily truth, but we have certain fears, and there's a lot associated with truth that we get confused, I think.
Superstition is just simply something that has arisen with time, and people believe this to be true, and they believe this to be the situation, when actually it isn't. It's just what it is, a superstition. A superstition is something with no basis of fact.
It developed through fear at one point?
Distortion.
Distortion.
Distortion. Someone distorts something or manufactures something. Often many superstitions are just manufactured. And people begin to believe this. They accept this as a truth. There's no truth to it.
Fear is what keeps us from the truth, I would imagine. Why else would we be telling lies if we were trying to cover something we're afraid of exposing?
Well, now, if we're cornered, you might say, and we feel there's some means of escape, you see, escape is built into every human being to one degree or another. So they feel, well, now I can escape the results of this particular situation if I can cover the story with fiction rather than fact.
Okay. Is there one truth that we all agree on?
There's one truth, yes, that ultimately we will agree on. But I don't think we're all going to agree on that truth at any given time or any given point. Ultimately, yes. Sure.
As we stay on the path of truth, will all of us come to this place of absolute?
Yes. As I said, the truth, the unknowable truth, is the truth of ourself, as far as humanity is concerned. The truth of creation, the truth of the universe, the truth of life, the truth of the purpose of life, and so forth. All this, of course, is revealed in time. This is the truth, the unknowable truth. And all of us will come into awareness of this, ultimately.
Is there a difference between wisdom and truth, and what is that difference, if there is?
Well, wisdom, again, is pretty much, you might say, absolute truth. The unfolding of absolute truth becomes wisdom.
I see. So as we get in touch with it more and more, we become wiser. As we get in touch with absolute truth by going within.
Well, oftentimes you say you become wiser because you don't do the same things that brought you an unpleasant result. So you become wiser. With old age, you should be wiser because you've experienced a lot more. But oftentimes that's very little to do with the truth. The truth is simply that which unfolds within ourselves. Now, with truth, we are wiser, certainly. Automatically we are. But as I say, you can become wise just simply through knowledge and experience without ever going within yourself to find the absolute truth of yourself. But if you do go within yourself and you find the absolute truth, then you're really dealing with the basic concepts of creation itself.
Is this path of truth, does it change with any person, or is it the same for all of us?
Oh no, as we go through life, aren't things constantly changing? Isn't everything relative? And as long as there's relativity, then there cannot be absolute truth in relativity. The truth also has to be relative. And that is so. That's true.
So the truth is changing as we change through life?
The truth is changing as things in life change.
As life changes.
Sure. Then the truth changes. So, what may be a true fact today isn't a true fact tomorrow.
Is this path a difficult path?
The path of truth is not the easiest path you were ever on, certainly, but it's the most rewarding. And that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably why we're on it.
The reward is eternal.
Thank you. We'll be right back after this. Charlie, thank you for this little jaunt through the path of truth.
Quite a walk, wasn't it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I've learned some things, and we'll be back next week, and we'll be talking about the laws of life. So, we'll see you then.
Good.